Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Kirby.
Is tomorrow a full on? All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming this evening. I apologize for missing our last class. My wife's father passed away and the funeral was that day. And so I appreciate your understanding. But then I think you start with the New Testament survey next week. Is that right? And if you have not yet picked up your New Testament survey book, they're right on the back table there. Roger sent them with me, so pick one up and take it with you. You do not need to read anything for next week. He just wants you to have it, flip through it, and what have you. But you will want to bring it with you next week. You will want to bring your Bible and your book and a notebook with you next week. Hey, it's Jason! A big hand here, right? Yes. We were just talking about how great you did yesterday, so did a great job. Yeah. You bet. So anyhow, we're gonna wrap up our leadership class this evening. But before we even get started in that, I just wanna find out how you doing. It's been a really heavy 5 days, and folks are still carrying the weight of that, and you feel like you're processing things all right. You feel like, tell me what feeling is bubbling to the top for you from this.
People being happy about it.
Oh, that's
I'm just sick with it.
yeah. Yep. Yep.
Sounds crazy, but a hint of optimism of people kind of finding their place and kind of seeing this as a wake-up call.
Mhm.
Seeing the companies firing the people that are celebrating. It's like, okay, maybe, unfortunately, although it's a terrible thing, may have been the spark, like you said, that wakes people up and brings people, to church and closer to Christ and calms the political unrest a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. What else?
Be motivated.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't happen, it happened for a reason. And I see a lot of, obviously, positive movements. I see a lot of young people just watching a lot of Charlie's interviews, which is incredible. See a lot of fathers stepping up and wanting to be better fathers and better husbands, because what it's coming to the surface. So it's really amazing.
Yeah.
Have a life, so impactful.
Yeah.
Wow, 31 years, that's pretty powerful.
Absolutely.
Inspires me to be a better person.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think that's exactly what Charlie would want. Hey, if I'm giving my life, I hope that it will inspire folks to rise to the occasion, to stand in the gap. Interestingly, we had 121 more people this Sunday than the previous week. I don't think it was just because Jason was preaching. I don't think so. Maybe he brought his fan club. I'm not sure, but that's right. Yep. But if you think of that, 121 people in a week. Now, I realize the previous Sunday was a little rainy, but it wasn't 121 person rainy, And so I talked to a pastor friend in Michigan this morning, and he said his church was very full yesterday, and that he was talking to people that hadn't been to church in over 5 years, but felt, I need to get back to church. And that just seems to be a real message that's kind of rippling out
from this. Any other thoughts or feelings or?
Make me feel a little bit more bold. So, hey, step out and not feel, like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that. I might have been, like, I've seen some of his videos and I'm like, just put it all out there,
Mhm.
Nothing stopped him. So I'm gonna keep on, you know. Fortunately, sometimes you have these, tragedies and then it's like everything blows up, right? And then it kind of like calms back down. I'm like, no, I'm gonna just keep going.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah, and I think that's the key, and because that's what he did. He gave a message that most of the people listening didn't like, but he did it in love, and they liked him. Jesus was the same way. People who were nothing like him liked him, you know, and that was Charlie. I mean, there were people that just did not like what he stood for. I watched, I watched an interview, and I'm not recommending it, that Bill Maher did with Charlie a while ago, not long ago, but just a little while ago. And then I watched an interview that Bill Maher gave since Charlie's death. And I mean, Bill Maher did not believe it hardly anything that Charlie, but he was absolutely furious at basically everything. Number one, that he got killed, that he got killed for his beliefs, but just the way that the country is reacting, so I think we need that boldness. I was telling our Connect, we hosted the Connect group leaders at our house, and on Saturday night, and said the thing is that I've been thinking about is how we have been, for 5, maybe even 10 years, they have just jammed tolerance down our throat. We have to be tolerant, we have to be accepting, we have to, we just have to tolerate. What they really mean by tolerance is silence. What they really mean is just keep your opinion to yourself and we'll be okay. But they can keep they can say their opinion, but we can't, so I love the fact that folks are feeling emboldened to stand for the truth, to share the gospel, to have the courage to give their opinion. Too often we just go along to get along instead of actually having the courage to say something. So yeah, I love that. Any other?
Charlie says it well, is he wants to be remembered for the courage of his faith.
Mhm.
That just struck me where it's like,
Mhm.
you can have faith, you can have courage, but you have courage of your faith.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. Anything else?
I think it's something, like people who are making views. There's two clear sides. It's not political. It's
Mhm.
good evil.
Yeah.
That's a trans person that actually went to one of the visuals and blown away, even though you would disagree with Charlie on that topic, just how accepting of love that was there.
Mhm.
No hate or anger. Love, acceptance.
Yep.
People who are on that line, shining the light of which is good for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing is, he reached a lot of people, but think of all the people who didn't listen to him before. They're going back on the internet, finding what he talked about, his different interviews and things. So that just kind of doubles the number that is hearing the word.
Sure. I mean, it's no doubt that it's magnified his message. I mean, I know I've watched a lot more Charlie Kirk videos in the last 5 days than I did in the 5 years beforehand. I knew who he was, but but here's the thing, my kids all knew who he was, because they're of that generation, and their Instagram and TikTok and all these kind of feeds, Charlie Kirk was coming up on it all the time. Not mine. Mine is old people, Mine people are all on Fox News that are coming through, So I think I think that's why it's hitting that generation so hard, because he was one of theirs, he was only 31. And so, but He was a leader. Only 31 years old. What were you gonna say, John? Yeah, yep, absolutely. And now it is, you know, he's got TPUSA Faith, which is for churches. He's got TPUSA for colleges and for high schools, and every one of them right now is just exploding. And yeah, wow.
Meters for each thing, 100 USA. There's 5. Um, yeah,
Wow. Well, that's good. Could you all hear that? You can download it on TPUSA under their curriculum section, and in the promo code, you just write the word education. And it's free then. Hey, how you doing, Shine? Good. So yeah, that's great. You know, that's great. Any other anything else on your heart?
I think it's powerful too, how social media is as well, like, we really occupied it, but really, I mean, I've not been to apologetics yet, when we were talking about it, I feel like those kind of topics that you are so confused on here. And, you know, with social media, it's free, accessible globally, instant, and we're finally filling it up with good stuff. So now more people are making content, like occupying space that maybe has been turning people the wrong way. I think that's a really big part of this. I remember last time we talked about, you know, the way that a church has to bring the message to people has changed. And I feel like something is changing now.
Yeah.
In that delivery for people, especially like my generation, which I'm in my 40s, like there's a lot of us that don't use social media. I feel like many of us are now stepping back in because it's important to continue to spread the message. You don't know who we're going to be talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 3 families that have recently started attending Venture. I didn't know any of them. 3 families came up to me on Sunday and said, absolutely loved what you all did for Charlie today. That solidified it in our mind that Venture's our church. So we want to join. And then I had another lady come up and say her daughter, who doesn't attend church, lives in Montana, texted her at the end of the service and said it was an awesome worship service, and she watched the whole thing. And the mother was just like, she was, you know, it's like, that's pretty cool. That is just pretty cool. So I just hope this momentum continues, that it's not like 9/11. I was pastoring then too, and we saw the same thing, major spike and then just a steady decline back to status quo. Part of me tells me I don't think that's going to happen this time. Not fully. We may not go back to, you know, we may come down some, but I mean, it feels like there's this has legs under it. You know, this has momentum, that there's, you know, there's a real,
There's a responsibility though to take up that mantle and work that momentum and not say, well, it's big, so other people are going to do it. Because it seems like that's like even on 9/11, but like I had thought that too about my husband, and everyone is patriotic. And now there's everyone patriotic and they're moving their faith forward more and empowered to do so. But well, AJ's gonna do it, so I don't have to. You know, type feeling of, well, look at what the church is doing. No, we are the church. We have to be the ones to do it, not so we look from an outsider's perspective, but to actually be the people who do it and take that upon ourselves. And completely run with it and pray with it and go, rather than letting it figure out by becoming that silent majority.
The man in the arena.
Yeah, that's right. My favorite. You know, we see Charlie and we envision, oh, well, if I'm going to stand for my faith, if I'm going to have an apologetic, you know, that it's going to be in front of a crowd or something. Here's the reality. Most of your conversations are not going to be in front of a big crowd. And there's not going to be TV cameras, right? Most of your conversations are going to be with a coworker, with a family member, with a friend over coffee or something like that. And here's what I just want to encourage you, that you don't have to have all the answers. You can just say, that is a great question. What do you say we study that together and see if we can't figure something out? And then do your homework, you know, study it, you know, and check it out and get together and have a little discussion about it. You don't have to come across as an authority that knows everything, you know. Be willing to say, that's a great question. I'm not exactly sure, but I would love to study that together. Maybe we can figure this out. That may be all it takes to start a conversation. That's what Charlie did. He started conversations, you know. He was willing to engage. And he said things that were confrontational, but he loved each person that he was talking to. They weren't his enemy. He never viewed them as enemy. He loved them, and he just wanted to share the truth with them. And that has to be our posture. Our posture can't be, ooh, you bad, you know, oh, you're this, ooh, you know. No, it has to, we actually have to love people and care enough about them to, you know, explore these difficult topics together and make some progress.
Aware of people too around us. As, you know, like I put it, it was a guy that was at the service who was there was said about something, and the lady was comfortable sitting there and the whole thing. And then as I was at the pool and he was walking out, I see him like bawling. And I'm like, Pastor Roger, go get him. Like, go talk to him, see what's going on in his life. You know, meet somebody. You know, I would have, but I, you know, young man. So I'm like, I better just. But I feel like we just, instead of like looking the other way, sometimes we're looking down at our phones and we're thinking like we need to be more aware of people because there's so many great people out there and social media and cause people to isolate themselves and that, you know, that's the number one killer, you know, for community and it's often our life down.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. Sunday was a very emotional day. You know, from my perspective, Jason's perspective on Sunday, people crying everywhere. You know, it was not an easy day to stand up there and keep a smile on your face. You know, people were really, it was a very raw day. Emotions were raw. People were, they were hurting, you know, and, you know, hopefully it helped to heal them, you know, a little bit. And, you know, just being together in community, having that shared experience, realizing the fact that we're all feeling that way. We're all feeling this heavy thing. We're all feeling this thing that it doesn't make sense why I'm being so affected by it. I didn't know Charlie. I hardly knew him. I hardly watched any of his things. Why am I being so affected? That I've heard that question so many times, you know? And so we just address it and we talk about it. And collectively, that's why community is so important. And I think it's one of the big shifts that's happening in church right now is, you know, for years and years, and I may have said this last, I can't remember who I said what to. So if I repeat myself, just smile at me. Okay. But for years, people were illiterate, right? And so the only one that could actually even read the Bible was the priest, right? So they would go and the priest would read the Bible. Half the time it wasn't in a language they understood, but they would go, they would hear it, and you know, and then over time, we got the Bible in our own language so that we could actually hold it ourselves. You know, we get the 1611 King James Bible, and people could say, but even then, so many people were illiterate. So it was the church that started the modern school movement by starting Sunday school. Sunday school was teaching people to read so that they could read the Bible. That was the main purpose of Sunday school. And so it was the church that started the education system, and as well as the college system, and as well as the hospital system. What else? Science, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So people, they couldn't read. We taught them to read. They started to read. Then they didn't understand. So then it became you went to church so that the preacher could help you understand what you were reading because it was kind of complicated. Well, guess what? You have a device in your pocket that can do a better job than me of explaining complex things to you, right? Isn't that the reality that we live in today? Or you can listen to Charlie Kirk, or you can listen to, pick your favorite preacher that's out there. Content now is readily available. I don't think the issue is lack of content. What's really hurting people is community, connection, family. And it's just kind of, they've lost it. And so there's isolation. Suicide rates are up. People are depressed. Alcoholism is going up. Drug use is going up. All of these issues, and so much of it stemming from the fact that we don't have a tribe. We don't have an identity. We don't have a group that we're with. So I think the shift that we're seeing in church is a shift from content to community, to connection. Now, content is always going to be important. I mean, we will always preach the Bible. We're going to teach the Word of God. We are crystal clear on that adventure for sure. That's what we do. But what folks, we really want to help people to grow spiritually. What we really need to help them do is get connected to a faith community, a group where they can get encouragement, have accountability. Because here's the reality. If you don't have connection and community, if you didn't come to church for a week, nobody's going to call. You don't come to church for a month, guess what? Nobody's going to call. And then you're going to be, I haven't been in 3 months and nobody's reached out. Nobody cares. Why go to church? Well, it goes both ways. You never got into community. You never served. You never got on a serve team, a learning group. You never got part of a connect group. You never got connected. So that's why we are working so hard to find pathways to get people connected with others. I don't care if you're serving. I don't care if you're in a learning group. I don't care if you're in a connect group or if you're in an interest group, but that you are getting connected with other people, spurring one another on to good works. Hebrews says, right? We need that. We need that connection. We need that community. And so I think we're going to see that being a big shift in the church going forward. I think it's already here, but I mean, I think it's just now starting to, kind of, bubble up there. So all very, very important things. And it's all, pointing to the fact that we need more leaders. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. So I'm going to open us up in a word of prayer, and we're going to jump into our discussion on leadership tonight. Let's pray. Father God, we come before you this evening in the name of Jesus. And Lord, we pray that God, each one of us would discover that place where we fit, that ministry where we are gifted, where we can serve and minister and grow. Help us, Lord, to learn how to be leaders, influencers, people who make a difference. God, we thank you again for the life of Charlie Kirk, the inspiration that he has served for so many of us in this country. God, I pray that it would give us the boldness and the courage to stand up, to speak up, to get involved, to God, just join the movement of what you're doing around the country. So God, just bless our time together this evening as we talk about leadership, as we want to grow together. We all want to learn and be better at leadership. And so God, just Show us what you'd have us know tonight, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So leadership is my favorite topic. If you were to see my library, I have hundreds of books on leadership, hundreds. And if a new one comes out, guess what? I have to get it. I'm addicted to leadership books. Yeah, I love leadership. And I've studied it for a long time. When you study leadership, leadership is good, for not just organizational behavior or how you lead an organization. It's good for your own life. It's good for leading your family, for your marriage. If you're involved in business, if you're involved in church, if you're involved in some kind of a ministry, when you learn these leadership skills, they aren't just specific to one industry. When you learn this skill, it goes through all of these different facets of your life. You are when you study leadership, you're better in all of these areas because you're a better leader at home and in your marriage and in your church and at work and always. So when you study leadership, it makes you better in so many different areas. And that's one of the reasons I really like it. We define leadership. My favorite definition, there's 100 of them, but my favorite one is just simply leadership is influence. It's the ability to move people. However you want to say it, it's just the ability to move people. And it's broken down into different facets. In your reading, you probably saw leadership as an art, right? What is the art of leadership? Anybody off the top of your head, anybody recall what the art of leadership is?
The art is the people side of it, connecting with the people, making sure they feel taken care of and connecting with them, making sure that they are resourced properly to achieve success. Where the science is more of the systems and pathways and processes that you put in place to help them get there.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah. Yep. So let me ask you this. How many of you are better at the art of leadership and how many of you are better at the science of leadership? So think about it. Do you understand the question? You know the difference? Think of yourself. How many of you would say, I'm better at the art of leadership? Raise your hand, nice and high. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many of you say I'm better at the science of leadership? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hey, we're almost split here. That's awesome. I think I'm better at the art of leadership, but that I've spent a lifetime studying the science of leadership. I've been to classes on strategic planning, and I've drawn so many charts on flip charts and marker boards and organizational stuff in my life that I've learned to be good at that, but I was more naturally gifted in the art. But here's the thing. It's an art, it's a science. This is important. It's a privilege. It's a privilege. It is an honor when someone gives you the authority to lead them. I'll follow you. You need to recognize that. That's big. They're willing to follow you. Listen, if you say you're a leader and you have nobody following you, you're just out for a walk, right? You are not leading anybody, leadership is that ability to influence people, to inspire them to follow you to some desired place that you want to go and they want to be there with you. So, if you're going to lead, you've got to be willing to be out front and you've got to have that courage. As a staff, we're reading a book talking about vulnerability as a main component of leadership. And here's the reality. You have to be willing to be vulnerable if you're going to be a leader. Not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to want to go where you're going. Not everybody's going to think the decisions you make are the right decisions. And you have to be okay with that. You have to do your best, but be willing to accept the fact that not everybody's going to like it. We had somebody get up on Sunday and walk out after the Charlie Kirk thing because they weren't happy about it. You know, that's going to happen. You know, you can't, you just have to roll with it. You know, you have to do what you feel is best, lead in the way that you feel God has led you to go, and then go, understanding that not everybody's going to like, you know, what you do. And that's okay. They didn't like what Jesus did, right? They tried to crucify Paul or stone Paul multiple times, you know, so I want to I want to talk just briefly about, you know, Maxwell. By the way, I realize he's in his 70s now. He was the leadership guru of my generation. And this book, Leadership Gold, is kind of the culmination of about 10 of his leadership books. It kind of brings out the best in a lot of them. A lot of these are principles that are, you know, they go for a long time. And so they're going to outlive John for sure. But I view John's work as foundational to somebody that wants to learn leadership. So this book is an introduction to John Maxwell. If you like his writing style, if you like the things that you saw in this book, then I'm going to recommend that you go back and you get the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. His absolute best leadership book. It gives you, it's these 21 laws, you know, that are just, it gives you a language, you know, the law of navigation, you know, anyone can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course, you know. There's all these different laws. That's a great one. If you find yourself in a position where you are a communicator, he's got a book on communication that is absolutely outstanding. So I highly recommend his stuff. I still use it to this day. I still take our staff through Maxwell's stuff. And that's just how we do things. But he talks about the 5 levels of leadership. I have met John multiple times. I've been on stage with him at a time or two doing things. You know, I've heard him give this lecture on the 5 levels of leadership. And the lowest level of leadership is positional leadership. And it's people follow you because they have to. Think of a teacher in a classroom, right? Your kid goes to school, the teacher's the teacher. They have to follow the teacher, you know? That is the lowest level. And so positional leadership is like the starting point. But some people get so wrapped up in positional leadership. And you know, their identity is tied to, anybody know what this is? Anyone? Org chart, you know? It's like, where am I on the org chart? As if it really makes any difference, you know? But listen, I've seen organizations where this person right here has more influence than people way up the org chart. They're down where the customers are at. They're down where the church members are at. They're making huge impact, you know? Just because you're here doesn't mean that you don't have significant influence in the organization, the church, or whatever it is. So just remember, positional leadership, that's the better. That's the bottom level. The next level is the permission level. And the permission level is people follow you because they want to. Like, I don't know where Jack's going, but I think I'm going to follow him. I think I want to go where Jack's going, you know, because you look at him and you think, I see something successful there. I see somebody that I want to go where they're going. And that starts by building trust. You know, people have to trust you and get to know you, and then they'll be inclined to be willing to follow you more. So it's really important to build relationships, build trust. Maxwell calls it building change in your pocket. You're continually building change in your pocket. And there are going to be times, if you the higher you go up on this chart, there are times that your decisions carry more weight. And there are times that, here's just the reality of it, you're going to make the wrong call. you're going to be forced with two choices and you're going to go, yeah, I think it's this one. And it would have been better to go that one. And there's times that you're going to make the wrong call and you're going to have to spend some of that leadership change. And that's okay. That's why that change is there. You make a lot of good decisions. You build a lot of trust. You do a lot of good things. You build up a lot of change in your pocket, a lot of leadership change. And then when you make a bonehead move, you can spend some of that leadership change. Where you're really in a pickle is when you have no change and you make a bonehead move. Then you get replaced, right? So positional leadership, permission, we're working our way up. The next is production. And this is, people follow you because they've seen what you've done for the organization. Whatever you're a part of, they see what you've done, and they see the positive results. You've delivered. You've come through. You said you're going here, and you got there, and things are good. And so more people, get involved there. The organization is better because you're there and your influence. And so, that's the production level, and it keeps going up. Most people do not make it beyond level 4. That's just the reality. Level 4 is the people development stage. And that is the fact that people get behind you because of what you've done for them. You've had an impact in their life. You've made a difference in their life. And they get behind you. This is a very high level of leadership. At this level of leadership, you're more interested in developing the people around you than you are yourself. You've made that shift where I don't really have to go up any higher. I don't need any more accolades. I don't need any more titles. I don't need anything else. I'm actually more interested in helping the people around me grow in their leadership, helping them to expand their influence, helping them to become better leaders. And so that's the people development phase. And then the pinnacle is people that reach this, obviously Charlie Kirk, I think, is a good example of one. You think of Ronald Reagan as an example of one. Rick Warren, John Maxwell in the Christian world, they're folks like that. If you go to the basketball world, Michael Jordan, people that, what they've done for the sport, what they've done for the church, what they've done for the country, what they've done is so big, it's so powerful that, a lot of people follow them. That's the pinnacle. So here we are studying leadership. It doesn't matter if you're at the bottom rung positional leadership, you're just teaching a Sunday school class. You're starting on that path. You're moving forward. So I encourage you, grow in your leadership, expand, be willing to learn. And we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. Jesus said this in Luke 16:10, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will be dishonest with much. Small beginnings are fine. It's okay to start here, but grow yourself so that you can continue to climb throughout your life. So briefly tonight, I want to talk about 4 levels of leadership. The first one being leading yourself. And quite frankly, I think that's probably the hardest one. The next is leading teams. And I hope every one of you will become a team leader at Venture. I would love to see that. So you lead yourself, you lead teams, you lead leaders. That's the third phase. And then the fourth phase is you lead organizations. You've kind of reached it where you're leading the whole enterprise, the whole operation, the whole ministry, the whole organization. So those are the things we're going to talk about here in our time together. So let's start with leading yourself. If I could only just say one thing, if we just said, the class ends in 3 minutes and there's just one thing that I want you to take away. I'm going to give it to you right now, right up front. This is it. If you want to be a better leader, invest in yourself. Read. Leaders are readers, readers are leaders. Read. Yeah, I don't like reading. Listen to the book that someone is reading, that's fine. But get the content, invest in yourself. If being a better leader is really something that's important to you, you should always have a leadership book that you're reading. I position books by chairs and couches and things like this. And if I'm at a desk, I got this book. And if I have a few minutes, I'll read some of that. And if I'm in this chair in the living room, I've got down on the bottom shelf here, I've got a book here that I'm reading. If I'm in my office at the house, I've got a stack of books that's right on the stand that's right there with me that I'm reading. Pre-position books, and just when you have a few moments, just pull out the book and read a chapter. Let it, inspire you. Let it give you some thoughts. If you mow the yard, I love mowing the yard, and I'll get out there and, put on some earphones and listen to podcasts. And, I just can't emphasize enough that if you want to be a better leader, you got to invest in yourself. The first and hardest person to lead is yourself. Probably one of the most challenging things to do is to develop the right habits. Get out of bed in the morning. Set the alarm clock if you need to. I'm at that age, I don't need to. Yeah. My body tells me when it's time to get up, It's usually somewhere between 5 and 5:30, which I'm not real happy about, but that's what it is, But begin to build discipline into your life. If we could just be gut level honest, isn't most of our issue lack of discipline? We know how to do it. We know what we should do. We just don't do it because we aren't disciplined. Well, really powerful, impactful leaders are disciplined. They've built habits into their life and rhythms into their life. And, so I really encourage you to do that. Seek feedback from other people. Hey, do you think I'm a good leader? Hey, I've been working on something. Have you noticed? Begin to get feedback and say, hey, what's it like being on the other side of me? Am I encouraging to you? Do I bring out the best in you? Do you feel like I care about you? I watched a video where Erica Kirk said that every day Charlie asked her, am I serving you well? Is there any way I can serve you better? He said he would ask her that every day. Is there any way that I can serve you better? Like, that's a person who's really comfortable in themselves because they're willing to listen to feedback. And I think if you want to lead yourself, you're going to have to ask those tough questions and learn and grow. So my recommendation is if you want to be a better leader and lead yourself, you need to build 15 to 30 minutes a day into your schedule just for leadership development. Get a leadership book, a leadership podcast that you like, and invest 15 to 30 minutes doing it. Cumulatively, it will change your life. It really will. I honestly believe that. So commit to personal growth, practice self-discipline. One of Maxwell's principles is to grow the organization, you have to grow the leader. The organization cannot outgrow the leader. The leader will become the lid. And once an organization, a leader stops growing, gets to the place where it's comfortable, I've done enough, once the leader stops growing, the organization stops growing. It's just a matter of time. I've seen it with pastors when they get close to retirement age. They quit dreaming, they quit envisioning a different future, they kind of get into, I've only got a few more years, so I'm just going to coast. Almost inevitably, the church starts doing this because they quit growing. Right after that, the organization quit growing. So, I never want to do that. I want to be reading, studying, growing all the way to the finish line. So build some routines into your life. Start small and then build it up from there. For some, best habit you can start with is just say, you know what? Here's what time of the day I'm going to start my day every day from now on. And just 6, 6:30, 7, 5, 5:30, whatever. Just pick a time and say, that's going to be my time. I'm going to build that into my life. And then once you're there, get your coffee, get a book, get your Bible, spend some time in prayer, but begin to build those habits into your life. Commit to personal growth, self-discipline, and reflection. Get to know yourself. Get to know yourself. Get to know you when you're at your best. And kind of consider, when I do stupid stuff, what are the conditions that usually happen right prior to me doing stupid stuff? And then begin to weed those out of your life. Be the kind of person who's willing to take honest feedback from family members, team members, peers. Just kind of ask yourself when you've led a project, how did I do? How do I feel I did? Jason, for years, I would get home on Sunday and I would ask my wife, what would you think? And she would tell me. Not a very nice lady, that she, no, I'm kidding. I am a person of humor. And I had to learn what humor was good from the pulpit and what humor was not good from the pulpit. And it took me quite a while. There are some jokes that I look back that I have told from the pulpit that I am absolutely floored that I ever thought that was a good idea. But it happens, things I've said that, I would just love to pull them back, but you can't do that. But getting honest feedback from people, if you lead a small group, have the courage afterwards to ask 1 or 2 people from the group and say, just be gut level honest with me. How did you feel it went? What could I have done better? Did I belabor that point too long? Did I not stop that fast enough? What could I have done better? If you lead a Sunday school class, be the kind of person that's willing to get feedback and then make yourself better. Use that feedback for self-improvement. Any other ideas that you have of ways that you could make yourself better? Any ideas?
Yeah, it's balanced in the distant portion, it's physical, spiritual. Building routines for physical aspect of walking, exercise.
Yeah, that's good. I just wanted, again, I saw in Charlie today, walking was his thing. And I don't like running, I don't like lifting weights, but walking is my thing. Yeah. And so good. Any other thoughts of things habits or things you want to build in, make yourself a better leader?
I think finding someone that's a couple steps beyond your leadership and attaching yourself to them and bouncing ideas off of them, mentorship, and having someone that you can really, like a go-to person that you don't have to ask to be gut level honest, that they can just say, how'd I do it? They tell you automatically.
Yep. 100%. I have a group of guys that I call the wise guys. I call them wise guys, even though they're not all guys, but it was just a joke that I did years ago when I developed this group because they were all guys. And, but honestly, the wisest one I ever had was a lady. So I just have this group of wise guys that I call for advice. and, you know, if I'm facing a big decision, I'm just not sure, you know, I'll call them up. And I've had, being in Naples, I've had the opportunity to sit down with some pretty high performance leaders, CEOs of very, very large companies and things like this, that if you ask them, you know, could I meet with you for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour, over coffee or breakfast or something like that? I would just like to ask you some questions and learn from you. You would be surprised how many are actually willing to do that. But let me give you a piece of advice. For you, it's not about coffee, breakfast, or lunch. For you, it's about what's between their ears. So if you show up without a page full of questions and a notebook, if you just show up and say, so, you know, I want to be a leader, what do you think I should do? Number one, they're not going to meet with you again. And number two, you just blew it. You know, you do your homework beforehand. If you're going to be sitting down with a high capacity leader, do your homework and know what they've done, what they've accomplished, and be willing to do your homework. And then when you arrive there and you start asking their questions and they're like, wow, you've done your homework. And it just, they're going to be so much more open to sharing with you. And your ultimate goal being invited back for a second meeting, you know, for a second conversation. So, you know, highly recommend that, but you have to be prepared for those meetings. All right, let's move on to leading others. Yeah, go ahead.
Personal growth, and it doesn't happen there enough, and one of the most important parts of it is to actually make goals that you physically write down, that are real goals, and that whole, like, people don't know how to make goals anymore, like, it has to be measurable, it has to say what you're doing, why you're doing, how you're doing. And because if I would say, I'm gonna get up at 5:30. And was it okay to go on the shower? You know, like, what was the goal? What was the point? What is the point of that goal? When am I gonna do it? I'm gonna do it every day. I'm gonna do it for the next 6 months. Like, it's making a real, actual goal that you can then measure and you can hold yourself accountable. If you don't do that, as humans, we just kind of lose track of what it is that we're trying to.
100%. Completely agree. Write it down, know what you're there for. I think your first 30 minutes should probably be soul care, you know, taking care of yourself, you know, spend some time reading the Bible, some Psalms, Proverbs, a little bit of time in prayer, a little personal reflection, then kind of process, okay, what am I going to do today? What are the big things I have to get done? Kind of think through your day and then start working your way through that. I'll tell you something that I do. And I've done this for years. The week between Christmas and New Year's, I research all the books that I want to read and I order them all that week. And I end up with a stack of books, like 30 books. Ellie will see it in December. She'll and I get this big stack of books. And then I kind of prioritize which one I'm going to read first. And then I never have to wonder what am I going to read, because I had already prepared, ordered them, and had them delivered, and they're there. And then I can just start working my way through them. I used to try and read one book a week. Since we've started building a church building, it's about once a month, you know, but Lord willing, we'll get into this building sometime and I can get back to, one a week. But, you know, set your goal. I love it. Okay, leading others. This is level 2 leadership. And this deals with intentionally empowering others, intentionally influencing others. And the only way you're going to get to do this is by building authentic relationships and, you know, putting yourself out there and getting to know people. You know, this is kind of more built on relationship than it is on position. You know, I think the biggest challenge we face with this today is time. You know, we just don't have the time to meet with people because we're so busy. Our days are so scheduled. But, you know, I feel like this is really important. I schedule 2 days a week that I just stack with meetings. And I meet with as many people as I possibly can on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if somebody says to me on Sunday, hey, can I get together? Yeah, absolutely. Tuesday, Thursday, which works better for you? And I am stacked Tuesdays and Thursdays, the days I meet with people, but it's important to me to meet with people. So I commit 2 full days to that, whether it's staff or church members or anybody else. Like, that's just the day that I spend with people. Mondays and Wednesdays are sermon prep. So that's what my schedule is. That's the rhythm that I have found that works for me. So, you know, you don't have to commit 2 days to meeting with people, but is there a time that you can say, hey, I'm gonna schedule some time where I'm gonna invest in others? It's important. If you're on a team, if you're leading a team, schedule one-on-ones with your team members. Check in on them. How you doing? Jack, how you doing? You know, what's going on? You doing all right? You know, just find out how they're doing. Listen, you know, care. Don't just show you care. Actually care. We want to know how they're doing. As you lead others, part of that leadership is in helping them is to begin to empower them and, you know, kind of come alongside them on their growth journey. This is true in our spiritual walk and it's true in our leadership walk. We strategically chose the word guiding people into growing relationship with Christ, because I wanted the imagery of the fact that we're walking together on a path. You know, I'm 6 inches ahead of you, but we're walking the path together. I'm a guide, but we're on the journey together. And so as we're on this together, develop, equip, empower others, give them some clear guidance. We have, I don't know how many staff we have now. It's 14, 16, 18. When a staff member does something that's inconsistent with our culture or wasn't exactly probably the right thing to do. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You're being careful with your words.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm recorded. I have to be, you know, everything I say these days is recorded, so I have to be very careful. The way I do that is I'll either go to their office. That's the best. Not to call them into my office and have them sit across my desk, but to go into their office, sit down, kind of go back and say, so a little coachable moment. That's how I do it. A little coachable moment. They'll typically say, oh, okay, yeah, what? So, you know, you did this. How are you feeling that went? You know, I'll listen to them. Well, help me understand what you're thinking to get to that, you know? And then I'll typically then try and segue into, well, have you ever thought about this? Or now that if you were doing it over again, do you think maybe you would do this? You know, just gently trying to, but here's the thing, have the courage to have the conversation, you know, or they're not going to get any better. You're just going to get frustrated as their leader because I never do anything right. I never do anything we're supposed to. You know, well, have you told them? Have you coached them? Have you come alongside and given them any advice on different ways to do it? So empowering them is giving them the ability to make the decision, but that doesn't mean that there isn't going to be feedback. There should be feedback. You empower them. And if they do good, make sure you tell them they did a good job. You know, make sure that you know, pat them on the back. You know, when I was in college years ago in business school, they had this business philosophy called management by walking around. And you're supposed to, be out there amongst the people, and I still believe that. But the idea is you're not walking around to find people doing wrong. You're walking around to catch them doing something right. So you can say an encouraging word, so you can pat them on the back. I mean, I almost always on Sundays, I'm looking for somebody there to just say, man, you killed it today. Man, that was awesome. First impression, man, you guys were killing it today. And whatever, just trying to be encouraging. And I just make that part of how you do. It's going to make you a better leader. And then third thing about leading others is to cast a clear vision and then communicate it regularly. I think this is an area where a lot of people struggle, is getting clarity and vision. And if you do, if that's something that you struggle with, get Andy Stanley's book called Visioneering. It's the best book on vision I've read. Visioneering. And it'll help you to know how to get vision and communicate vision. If you want people to follow you, you have to be able to describe where we're going and what the future is going to look like when we get there. I mean, I am so excited about where we're going as a church. I'm excited about the new building, but you realize the new building that's not the goal line. That's not the finish line. Yeah, that's just the building is a tool. That's all the building is to help us to get to the next phase where we're going, sparking a movement of God in Southwest Florida, where we have chapters in all the schools and colleges and things like this, and casting that vision, communicating that vision. What are some other things that you think we can do to lead others better that you gleaned from your reading this week? Anything jump out at you?
Example.
Lead by example.
Yeah. Ones that I've always, in healthcare, I've always said, I'm not gonna ask you to do anything behind.
Mhm.
So I'll be right there. You can't do it on that.
Mhm.
So I think example is the big thing.
Sure. 100%.
I think this is also where kind of that art and the science start coming into play. I think, one of the things that I wrote down was the science should be pre-planned, allowing and the systems in place to allow you the time to invest and do the art of leadership
Mhm.
instead of having to come up with processes while you're around the people that you're leading. Have that preset, so now you have the guardrails. Now that the guardrails are, you say, go nuts, within these guardrails, and then you're alongside of them and saying, pushing them forward and then tweaking and guiding them within those guardrails.
Mhm. Yeah, that's good. Any other thoughts on leading teams? All right, leading leaders. Now we're getting into the place where we're leading a team of leaders, and that's fun. Because the reality is our goal is not to just create followers. Our goal is to create leaders, right? We're actually trying to marinate leaders, not followers. So it's going to take more time, more investment, more constructive feedback that we're gleaning from them, more challenges, empowering them to take on bigger leadership roles, bigger projects, trusting them. So help them, challenge them in their leadership potential. I think you could do this. I think you could lead this organization. I think you could lead this team. I think you could lead this group. I think you could teach this class. When you delegate authority, not tasks. give them the ability to have the authority to make the decision. Don't just give them a to-do list and tell them to go do it. Big difference there. Allow them to make decisions. I try to do this with our staff. There are many times that I'll hear a staff member and they're making a decision, and in my mind, I'm like, that is not the way I would do it, you know? But I let them. And sometimes it works out great, and their idea was better than the way I would have done it. Sometimes I was right, but they learned, and then we were able to have a coachable moment afterwards and come up with, different ways to address those. So, you're going to lead leaders, model servant leadership. You're here to serve. I'm here to serve. In my particular role in our church organization, I may be up in the top box, but the reality is my biggest job is serving everybody else that's there. It's helping them. It's coming alongside them and encouraging them, blessing them, empowering them, equipping them, resourcing them. Always challenging them that you can do more. You've got this. You can do this. You can lead this. You've got it within you. You can make it happen. And so, serve them. What time does this end?
Whenever you're done.
What time is it supposed to end? 8:30? Okay. All right. The last one I want to talk about is leading organization. And you may find yourself in a place that you're leading a business, you're leading a large ministry, you're leading a church, you may be leading our next campus. There could be any number of things, but you get to this level where you're leading an organization. At that point, you really have to be getting good at visioneering and casting vision for where we're going, because that's what folks are looking for, is where's this organization going, and is this something that I want to be a part of? Do I really want to commit myself to this? Am I excited about where we're going here? So articulate a clear vision that resonates with everybody in the organization or the folks that are there, and then you have to communicate that consistently, constantly, clearly, throughout the organization at all times, everywhere. It's crazy, but you have to just keep it out there. At the leading organizations stage, you have to focus a lot on creating the culture of the organization. Culture is so incredibly important, and so you really have to focus to make sure that the culture is where it should be, and be a champion for it, and call out deviations from the culture. Our staff, listen, if I'm walking through the hallway and I see a piece of paper and I'm going to bend over and pick it up, you better pick it up. If the phone rings 3 times, I'm answering it on the 4th. And then when I get off the phone, I'm going to walk around the office and find out who was so busy, that they couldn't pick up the phone we have a 3-ring rule, like, listen, we've got a few folks that typically answered on ring 1 or ring 2, but when it gets to 3, it's all hands on deck. Everybody dives for the phone. I think when people call, they should get a real person, and so that's just part of the culture of what we do. And but those are just little examples of the culture. We want to serve people well, and we want to bless each other and help each other and come alongside. We have at our staff, it's an all hands on deck. Every ministry at any time can call an all hands on deck, and that's it. They can marshal the entire staff. They've got something good. If the care center has something going on and all the volunteers canceled and we have a distribution tonight, they can do an all call, all hands on deck, and that's it. I mean, we come, we come a running, that's who we are. If you're going to lead the organization, you have to lead with integrity. You have to really work hard on building trust. I already had the whole leadership change pocket, there. You can build that change in your pocket because there'll be a day that you may need to spend a little bit of it. So model integrity, be the real deal. Foster open communication, be willing to talk about things, get input from other people, value the input you get from other people, listen. These are all so important. Let me ask you this. How did you like Leadership Gold? Did you like the book? Yeah, you read two books, Spiritual Leadership by Oswald Sanders and Leadership Gold by John Maxwell. Which one did you like better? Leadership Gold or Spiritual Leadership by Sanders? Sanders, Gold. All right, let's do it this way. How many of you like Sanders' book, Spiritual Leadership, better? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then everybody else, Leadership Gold. Yeah, I agree. I love them both. I read them both regularly. And as I was preparing for this class, I was flipping through this book, and I've had this book for years. And I saw a note from one of my staff members. Now I can't find it, but that I wrote clear back then when I was teaching this to a staff, Marco Island, back in probably 2008 or 9 or 10 or something like that. And a note that I wrote in it. But I love this book. I keep going back to it. I honestly think Oswald Sanders' book is one that you can just put on the read it every year list. It's that good, and it's good stuff.
I could hear your voice in it, or I could see its influence on the things that, like, you shared with us that you found it a lot. When I heard really good, I was like, oh, that's good. That really does. That I think that's what I can tell it's been influential.
Yeah, thank you. It really has. I mean, it is shaped. Yeah.
Introduction was kind of cool.
I put it on 2 times speed for that.
Yeah. Yes. Anything that you learned that was just kind of like an aha moment to you in either one of the books? We're going to wrap things up, and I'm going to let you out of here probably very early. But I do want to hear if there's anything that for you, like this was what you needed. This one thought, this one principle, this one, segment. Investing in yourself. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. You're not well. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. No, the statements you made that you said you invest a lot more in other people than you do in yourself. Isn't that how we do it? I mean, unfortunately, we all do that. The problem with that is there comes a day when your bucket's empty and you have nothing left to give, right? And that's a bad day. So love that. Good. What else?
So I've done a lot of books and studies on like developing people, coaching people, growing people, but I loved a lot of stuff on like true influence. So one of the things that I took away and actually used in a few of my team meetings is the meeting before the meeting. So my role at work, but I think all of us all the time ever, like how do you influence people that don't have to listen to you? Like so that meeting before the meeting, I just loved. And actually, like I read that the very next day, I'm like coaching my team. We constantly have to lead without authority, plus all these people. So I loved it. Like take your sponsors, if you're trying to do something ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't blindside them in the meeting or
Yep.
large group.
Yep.
Loved it.
Yep. Never call for a vote unless you know what the answer is going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned that I have in 33 years 33 years of church ministry. The number of votes I've taken, I have only had 2 no votes. Diane Whitaker, I'll never forget her, she's been dead for 30 years, so I can use her name, and her husband who voted whichever way Dan wanted her to vote, Another church in the area was going through a tough time. We had quite a bit of extra money. And so we were voting to lend them some money for a short period of time. They didn't think we should be lending money. Other than that, the only 2 no votes ever had in 33 years of ministry. Because, I really work hard to really know what the vote's going to be before we call for it. Because if you don't, it leads to all kinds of division and things like that. So do your homework ahead of time. Yeah, I love that. Good. What else? Yep.
That you can learn to.
Mhm.
Exciting.
Mhm.
Exciting for the next generation. Many of us, parents and uncles that can get the skills down to make sure that we're inspiring for leadership.
Yep. I have a dream to write a series of leadership books for kids. I would love to take all of this stuff that I've learned in the big world and bring it down so that my grandkids and others could do. I think we need to start teaching leadership at a much younger age to our kids, So that's on my bucket list one day, maybe. What else?
Building trust through consistency.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's powerful.
Couple thoughts, if you want on the book, I really liked how Matt will talk about strength zones. I think that's important because especially with positional leaders, over index on feedback more often now, because look what it took for me to get here. It becomes about that level of authority versus drawing the best out of others and helping them so that their strengths. I thought that was an important concept to remember. And then going back to 2 things that you mentioned, one was the leading leader. I think it's important to remember to lead beyond the org boundary. Right? So when you're leading leaders, it's not just leading that level of leaders that report to you. It's making sure you're still able to meet the folks beyond that, whether that's once every 2 weeks, or once a month, or quarterly, whatever it is. Those skip levels are still important. So beyond that leadership level, they're aware that you still care about them, not just the folks that report directly up to you. At least that's my feeling on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then leading forward is just celebrating wins is really important. And more often than not, we focus again on, well, that could have gone better. We never take time to celebrate wins and recognize each other.
Absolutely. Those are huge. What else?
The story it had been told about when he put the seeing the insurmountable challenge and to his church. And I want to say it had a previous attendance record of 130 or something, and he said I only could fit 33 cars, and he said bring 300 people in there, and that whole 299. So he went out, God bless him. I love the moment when he said that in that story. They said because it took him to a place he wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciated that moment, as in my work, they moved me to a different role and to the team leader of a thing that I've never even taught before. And it pushed me suddenly. I was like, that's what this is. I've suddenly been pushed into a role that I did not expect. And yet, so I'm like, all right, then let's go find those 2 guys at the gas station. I love that moment that he recognized in that, and I just felt like that was a real he felt some defining moment. It was a real moment of clarity though, to say out of pride or it wasn't even necessity. He was like, oh no, let's do it. I think it was kind of more joking, and then it found himself actually doing it.
Yep.
And so looking for that opportunity and pushing yourself even. I love that story, and also the mental imagery of that is just spectacular.
And I've heard him tell that story live, and the thing that always jumps out at me about that is his passion is contagious. And I love that. I mean, he had a vision, he had a dream. There was somebody's going and they were so close and let's do this. And his passion for that is contagious. And think-
Imagine that moment though, when he got out the doors,
Mhm.
that very first second, I'm, oh, God.
Right.
I really don't think so. I'm like,
Yeah. What have I done? Yeah. Yep.
Like, you want to see the town hero or, I mean, it
Yep.
was absolutely. But that he took that terrifying moment and really turned it into just, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Who else?
Knowing what his own strengths were and not trying to be everything. Like other people on the team bring their strengths to the table. As hard as a manager, because when you take on a team, especially if you only work by yourself, you're responsible for your own work. That happened to me, and I had to take over an department, and I'm like, oh, now I have to make all of them reach these goals. But, each of them have different strengths to bring to help them complete what we need to do. And it's a hard thing to learn.
Yeah. 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 I think a lot of it goes back to knowing yourself and just knowing I'm not good at that, so I'm going to have to recruit somebody or hire somebody that can do that. And so it does. It goes back to really knowing your strengths. Yeah. Good. Anything else? All right. So my challenge for you is simply this: to begin investing in yourself. Do some research, find a leadership book, and buy it. Anyone you want. I'm not going to recommend it. You find one that you think you need, order it, and put it next to your favorite chair. And, make that commitment to start investing in yourself today. Get on Amazon tomorrow, order the book, get it, set it there, and, start today. We can go through this class and then next thing you know, tomorrow you've forgotten about it. Next thing you know, you've never done it. So your homework is just simply buy a leadership book. I don't care who or what. Buy a leadership book, get it ordered, put it by your chair, start reading it. All right, good enough homework. That's pretty simple. All right, class next week. If you do not get the New Testament book, that's right there behind Ellie. So feel free to pick one of those up. It's 8:10. And Jason, close us in prayer, would you please?
Father God, just thank you so much for today, for helping us get together. We know this is a pretty difficult season that a lot of folks are going through. And despite all of that, just appreciate the investment of time and the courage that it takes for us to step out and spend the time together. And thank you for every individual that's here. Thank you for Pastor Tim, time he took out for us to share his wisdom and walk us through what it takes to be great leaders, Lord. And thank you, Jesus, for being the best example of that all time. Thank you for being that servant leader that inspired, influenced, engaged, and touched the lives of so many individuals, Lord. We just pray that as we continue our own journeys, we take time to invest in others, and that we did invest in ourselves. So many moments that we just kind of be by yourself, spend time talking to God, think through all these notes. We're also grateful for all the great men and women that have written all the books that are out there that can do like coffee chats that we have with friends. I just pray that at the exit today that we'll take the time to actually do the homework for time, so that we get ourselves and we're able to do more for the Lord all around. Practice as we head home tonight. Listen, the events last year, I was thinking last year. Always against the.
Amen. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful week.